Hi everybody, this is an impromptu thingy today to talk about gardening, alrighty? And in fact, it's more about what you can do in regards to gardening this early in the season. Today, it's a warm day. We're having a storm tomorrow. Go figure. I think we're supposed to have about 5 inches tomorrow. But hello, Freya. It's nice to see you. Even though we're supposed to have snow tomorrow, have been working on the garden today. I did a little work today. I've been doing a lot on the internet, and in between, I've been running out to the garden, checking on the greenhouse, figuring out what I'm going to be planting, and more. Okay, now I'm in zone 6A-B. We have this, our own little microclimate here, because I'm somewhere in between Storm King Mountain and the Hudson River. So it's actually like a little bit different. My microclimate here is a little bit different. It may snow just a little bit more in this pocket of area, or we might have a bit more wind because the wind picks up over the mountain, which I'm facing right now. So that in mind, I've kept records as to what I can expect in this area. So that leads me to chore number one. So chore number one would be to see where your sun is. It's called sun mapping. Now, I brought this topic up in the Magical Gardening group, and Charles, thank you for this. I forgot that this weekend is spring ahead, all right? So daylight savings time. But even still, figure an hour to and fro, figure out where your sun is. And it's probably one of the most important things that you can do. So all day today, I've been, I kind of know where my sun is, but where is it now and where it will be? So I lost my sun on the greenhouse at around 2:30, which means once we spring ahead, it's going to be actually 3:30. So at least I have that in mind. I'm keeping records of that. Then the sun kind of goes behind my little building here, and then it comes back on the other side of my deck. So some areas get sun, and then they get shade, and then they get sun again. Other areas in my garden, it's pure sun up until about 3:30, and then actually, I don't have any spots where it's purely shade. So I'm lucky in regards to that. So sun mapping is a big thing. Hello, Lori. Nice to have you here. So with that in mind, it's actually very important to find out where your sun is. Now, why would that be important? Well, it tells you what plants to plant where. So in other words, I wouldn't want my sunflowers to cast shade on my tomatoes. Alrighty? So I would want to plant my tomatoes that are really sun-loving in a place where they get a lot of sun, and put my sunflowers in the back. So if there is shade, the sunflowers are in the back and it won't bother my tomatoes. That is, of course, if you want to put shade on something like a cooler weather veggie, maybe like kale or something like that, then it's quite possible you can companion plant by putting something like a kale under a sunflower or behind a sunflower to make that work. Hey, Christine, nice to see you, sweetie. So knowing where your sun and your shadows are will help you with success in your with your plants. Okay, so figure out where the shades are going to be. Like I said, sunflowers, especially if you grow the mammoth ones, they're like 10-12 feet tall. When the sun hits them, there's going to be one heck of a shadow. So don't plant anything behind them that needs a lot of sun. On the other hand, I've companion planted with my tomatoes where I wanted more leafy greens. It's too hot in the greenhouse, so I've put lettuces under my tomatoes, at least up until maybe late June. Then it gets just too hot no matter what, and then the lettuces don't grow. Basil grows really well with tomatoes too, and that's like a classic companion planting duo. Alrighty, so basil next to tomatoes. It is said that basil makes tomatoes taste better. I don't know that. I can't vouch for that, but I will say that they grow very well together. So I'm really happy. Plus basil, especially if you let at least 1 or 2 plants go to seed, it actually brings in the pollinators, and I really, really like that. I got an itch here. So that's one reason for sun mapping. For me, because I have a little itty bitty greenhouse on my deck, though it wouldn't matter the size, but if you have a greenhouse, sun mapping is very important too, because you would want your greenhouse to face south or southeast. My sun comes up this way, so the greenhouse starts to get it. It comes all the way around my deck. My greenhouse is on my deck, and I lose sun in the greenhouse around 3:30. But I start to get sun after daylight savings time at around 6:30 in the morning. So the greenhouse really heats up a lot and quite quickly. Today, my greenhouse actually went up to 99 degrees outside, even though it was like 52. So these are some of the things you need to keep in mind. I would keep a little diary about it. I'm a bit of a geek, so on my iPad, I have a program called Good Notes, and I made up my own gardening calendar using that. So every day I go in there and I kind of mark down what I've done just to help me throughout the season, and I can look back at it and see what I did last year. Next year I'll see what I did this year, see what my successes and failures were. I noticed that last year I had a bumper crop of tomatoes. I had a bumper crop of sunflowers, because this year the squirrels did not decimate my fruits and veggies. The year before, there were so many squirrels that one day I went up on my deck and everything was torn up, especially when it came to my sunflowers, tore it up. Just roots and everything, pots were on the floor and everything. And tomatoes were half eaten, left all over the place. So I found out that the case of that was that they wanted water, so they were eating the tomatoes for water. And it was also a bumper crop of acorns and other seeds that the trees drop. So trees will drop an excessive amount of seeds, pine cones, acorns, and it happens, I think, every 5 years or so. And in fact, do the research, because I'm a little bit brain dead right now and I can't quote the study. But when that happens, the squirrels become more active, and now they're looking for lots and lots and lots of food. Secondly, looking as an organic gardener, because I was trying to trap what I could. I also had trouble with groundhogs. Groundhogs. Chipmunks didn't bother me too much. They kept running off with my strawberries, but that's nature. I won't use poisons or anything to kill anything. I tried to relocate the best I could, try to do some fencing. I literally would try to shoot animals with water, you know what I mean, with the hose, because I had a high pressure, just to let them actually be afraid of humans, because they shouldn't coexist. Here in Cornwall, the deer population is so bad that you literally, there's crossings for kids at the school. It's like that for deer here. So the idea is I don't want them to be comfortable around me. I want them to be away, as I wish most would, because I hate seeing them dead on the road. But the idea is to work with nature, find out what kind of I don't want to say pest damage, because pests are associated with insects, but animal pressure that you can have with your gardens and such. My husband has an in-ground garden. I have a rather large container garden for a deck, okay? And I'll get to that in a minute. And we're pretty mindful as to the animals, so trying to put up fencing is very important. So now is a good time to take a look at all of those things, what is going on. Lori, I know you have amazing roses and amazing garden. I'd love to actually hear what you do for your gardens too. Lori's garden is almost like an English garden, for a lack of a better way of saying it, with her Austin David roses and crystals and stones all over her place. She is really one of the most amazing gardens I've seen in this town. Anyway, I'd love to hear what you're doing, but right now it's a good time to start raking up last year's. I don't want to say last year's growth, but you want to start chopping down anything that may have been left from over the year. Like I had tomato stalks that were still there. I was chopping them down. I pruned up all of my roses. I pruned up the raspberries. The raspberry bushes, the blackberry bushes, and I have 2 cherry trees. This year, I found egg nests, all right, meaning not an egg, but insect nest, and it looked like foamy. You know when you, insulation foam, and then it heats up and it's hard. It was like that. I don't know if it was a good insect or not, but what I did was trimmed the that piece off of my trees and threw them in the fields. I don't know if it's a good insect or not. Maybe you would know that. But I saw that they were on any of the woody growths that I had. So I cut those away. I still need to go and pull more grasses out and put new mulch down. So you do all of this now. You clean all of that out. You can put that in your compost pile, especially if you have a hot compost. So my compost pile gets pretty hot inside, so it'll kill off a lot of weed seeds. If you have a cold compost pile, it'll still work, but it'll just take more time. Or you could take those weed seeds, put them in a bucket with water, have something to agitate it like you have in a fish tank to keep it bubbling, and keep it in there to ferment. And then that fermentation actually pulls out a lot of nutrients out of the weeds. Believe it or not, weeds can help you. They are helpful for the garden. You just have to know how to use them. Either they can be used as compost, they could be used as chicken food, or I have guinea pigs, so some of those weeds I feed to my guinea pigs. Or you can, it's like a plant juice or a plant fertilizer. Alrighty, and it's usually a low, like 0.01, 0.1, 111 phosphorus, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Nitrogen, yeah. Anyway, I'll get it back. So those numbers are actually pretty good when you're starting out your garden. Another thing to work on is fertilizing your gardens and your containers. And what I mean by that is not the heavy fertilizer that you can get. I'm talking about a light fertilization, and that means either new potting soil or new compost, or I love worm castings. Alrighty, if you can get a nice bag of worm castings and just sprinkle it over and around all of your plants, just a light sprinkling. And it might sound crazy if you could even do that today before the snow, because the snow will then melt eventually, and then the castings will go into the soil and do some work for you. So worm castings also contain a growth hormone. So it would be really nice if you could go out there and do it. If there's anything that I would suggest right now is to clear away any diseased debris, old, cracked branches, clean up everything, and then put some worm castings down if you can, and it'll help to nutrify your soil now before the heavy duty growing season ends. So it's kind of preparing your soil now. If you already have if you already have weeds coming up, cardboard is a great idea. If you can't pull them out and it's a big spot, oh no, a ladybug just flew in front of my face. That's got to go outside. Anyway, cardboard is really good to lay down in your garden. Alrighty, so if you put cardboard down, make sure that it's not shiny, and you pull all the tape and staples out of it. Lay it down on your garden, and believe it or not, water it. Alrighty, you can put compost on top of that and water it again. The reason for that is that the cardboard will smother out any weeds that are underneath, any plants you don't want to come up. Like I had a lot of volunteer plants that I didn't get to. So in my pepper plants, I had cherry tomatoes coming out and stuff. So I'd like to keep a better track of doing those. Hey, Lyra! With that in mind, cardboard is really good. Most cardboard, if it's not shiny, I did a little research in this, is actually printed with food grade ink. Even still, I would probably go for the cardboard that doesn't have much printing at all. Like I said, make sure you take off the tape and staples or anything like that. Nothing shiny, nothing with wax. And lay that cardboard over your garden, wet it down. If you don't want to put compost on it, that's just fine. But what I would do is put a couple of stones or something, a brick or something, just so that it doesn't blow away. And that cardboard would kill most of the weeds underneath. So this way you can still continue with having an organic garden and not need anything more to that. And also, it saves. Gardening can be a bit backbreaking, you know. I was out all day, like I said, on the deck when I could. And, you know, it's a lot of work. And there's still a lot more that I have to do because I wasn't as diligent as I should have been with pulling weeds. This year, I'm going to try an experiment. And that is my little piggies. They have their shavings. I'm going to use the shavings that I use as bedding for them. And I'm going to use it as mulch for my container gardens. Alrighty, so that's going to be a big thing for me. What we wind up doing in my husband's in-ground garden is we do cut and drop. So as everything goes in, let's say your tomato comes up and you know you're trimming to a single stem or maybe 2 liters, whatever you cut off, whatever you trim, whatever you prune, we just let it drop right down on the ground. And last year, very little weed pressure. So we're going to continue with that theme, except for like the spots that I couldn't get to, like, you know, a tight corner or something like that. But anytime I prune in his garden, because we're going to be growing hot peppers, paste tomatoes. I'm going to grow a lot of paste tomatoes as well. Early in the season, though, I'm hoping to get some broccoli out there, arugula out there. I can't keep arugula alive on my deck for some reason. The bug pressure is too high for whatever reason. Anyway, I have some plans to grow there. Once the summer comes in, then I put my tomato transplants in. I'm growing tomatoes in my greenhouse, and then I'll transplant them back outside. So I like to use cut and drop for the in-ground garden, but for my container garden, I'm going to try the wood shavings. Plus, my piggies' manure, guinea pigs, is cold. They only eat veggies and they only eat alfalfa and you know, they're vegetarian. So their manure is cold, which means I can actually throw their manure right on my container garden, in the soil and in the in-ground garden. And it just neutralifies the soil, again, in a very gentle way. So I can, and I also put that in my compost, and actually does very well in the compost because it adds a lot of nitrogen and it heats up the compost, which is what I'm looking for. So there's a lot of benefits. It's kind of like a cycle. I feed them, they feed the soil feeds me. So it's kind of a cycle. So we're talking about throwing some nutrients on your soil. We're talking about cleaning up the debris. And I know there are people that say, no, wait and be careful about the bugs that overwinter in your soil. There is a give and take there. And what I mean by that is, while there are beneficial bugs, there are also non-beneficial bugs. And I'm sure there's probably, an argument to be said about that. But I feel better clearing everything out. If I see something, and I have yet to see a beneficial bug that's overwintered, and that's just me, like when I see a monarch butterfly caterpillar, I'll save it. Or you get what I'm saying? Or if I see beneficial wasps or something like that. Now, I have an eye for it. I know what to look for. I'll be careful with that. But I also don't want squash bugs, stink bugs we have an issue with in this area, and they do eat leaves. Okay, so just letting you know. Hey, Craig. It's nice to see you, hon. Stink bugs actually do eat leaves. There are squash bugs. The one of the biggest banes to me are those white butterflies. They eat anything in the brassica family. So that's broccoli and arugula. And actually, they did a job on my lettuce. So I have to look into that. And so the idea is this year, I'm trying to get them started as early as I have. And I have a full harvest of lettuce in my greenhouse right now, because I hope that they're strong enough to withstand the pressure from the insects, because I don't spray my plants with anything other than neem oil. A little bit of hydrogen peroxide, believe it or not, that's been highly diluted, is also good for powdery mildew if you do get that. And that's a fungus thing. It's not an insect thing. But the idea is to keep it as clean or as organic as possible. And that's what I'm trying to do, still keeping the integrity and the volume of fruit that I want coming out of my garden. And tomatoes are very important to me. I've already run through everything that I've canned. And that actually is another thing I wanted to touch on down the line. Would you guys be interested in learning about food preservation, dehydration, canning, all those things? Because I do a lot of that. I make butter. I do as much as I possibly can in my tiny little place. And you can see all my grow lights going on there. So I just planted my tomatoes and eggplants now. And then in 2 weeks, I'll do another planting of those. And then in another 2 weeks, as they get big enough, I'll put them in the greenhouse and get as many plants as I can out there. Another thing that I'm doing this time of the year is microgreens. So I've been doing microgreens since January, and it's wonderful. So in about 2 weeks, I've grown tons of sunflower seed sprouts. I let them get to be about maybe 4 inches tall or so. We'll go into that. That's a whole other video on how to grow microgreens. But I've been getting continuous harvests from my indoor garden since January because of microgreens. So I'm really happy about that. A microgreen is anything, any edible plant that you can sprout, put it in a container and overseed it, wet it down, keep it in the dark for a couple of days till it sprouts, take it out, let it grow. Again, I'm making it very simple. But vitamins and nutrients are highly concentrated in those microgreens. It's very different than sprouts, because I'm planting the microgreens in soil. Sprouts is in water. Okay, microgreens, you can get a very tall, crunchy green out of that. Sprouts are small. I like sprouts too, don't get me wrong, but what I'm looking for is food production, and I cook basically for 3 people every day. So with that in mind, I'm looking for more bang for the buck. If it was just me, maybe I would just stick to sprouts. So I'm just giving you a for instance. So cleaning up, fertilizer, taking a look at the sun already, and take a look at insect pressure. See what is going on. See if anything is on your tree. See if any of your trees or your plants that overwinter, see if they're damaged by anything. A plant like strawberries come back, I think they last about 5 years. So some of my plants might need to be upgraded this year, though everything seems to be coming back in that instance. So strawberries you want to clean away. You're going to be clipping the plant away until you just see the crown, and it'll get a fresh start. So strawberries come back every year. My culinary white sage comes back every year. I was just testing it. It looks sad, but when I cut off a little piece of it, there's fresh green in there. So that's coming back. The raspberries are coming back because I could see the growth in there. So believe it or not, this time of the year, is not as barren as you think. There are a lot of things that come back. My daffodils are just starting to peek their way through. And I have one spot that still has snow in the front, and I can see the green coming through. After that should be the bluebells that we planted, that my mother-in-law gave me, so it's really quite nice. So there's a lot going on. So keep a list of those things for a successful garden, okay? It's not the time for herbs outside, though rosemary may come back, and I eat a lot of rosemary, so that is a very beneficial herb. Oregano may come back. With me, I've had hit or miss success when it came to oregano. It looks like my lemon thyme is coming back because I checked the branches of that. There's still good smell to it, and it was quite pliable. So I'm going to keep my eyes open on that. I may need to transplant that into a larger pot. So these are just some things, and believe it or not, it's a large list. It is a large list. So if you don't, just a little tip, if you don't have a compost pile, or you have a small little place, like I live in a 600 square foot place, you can keep, like, you get large Folgers coffee bin and keep all your food scraps. Cut them up real small, throw them in there. Throw your coffee grinds in there. Coffee grinds is pure nitrogen. It's really great. But they have to be spent, not fresh, all right? So after you make your coffee, put them in there. Tea bags, open them up, spill them out. You could put that in there. Eggshells, I put separately because I grind them down, and I'll explain that in a minute. So any sort of table scraps, not any animal products. And here's the misnomer. It's not that it turns your compost bad. Having animal products in your compost draws other animals to your compost pile. So if you don't want your garden to be dug up or something, if you are an expert composter, you can use animal products, but you have to know how to do it right. And I'm not an expert, and I'm not going to get into that right now. So right now, my compost pile consists of the debris that I'm cutting up right now, cleaning up. So that's greens, old cardboard that has very little, or I've used it already, so I'll tear it up and I'll put it in there. The old stalks from last year, I cut them small, chop them up with the shovel, with a shovel, put it in the pile. The scraps that I have from here. And then with my eggshells are a great source of calcium. And I know there's some debate on that, but I was looking at some of the nutrients. So it's going to be an experiment this year. Alrighty. I will try starting my marigold seeds and plum tomatoes. My thyme looks good, and other herbs in the in containers. Going to see what I can start seeds. Yes. Under the plant light in the kitchen. See, Freya, that's great. That is what I'm trying to inspire, because now is the time to do that. Magically, or with your intent, when a plant grows and you put all that effort into it, it helps to bring all things are possible. Let's put it this way. I don't want to sound too out there, but my garden is magical. All the effort, whether it's composting, cleaning up, the intention in the seed that goes in. Each seed or plant is usually associated with an intent, or a god or a goddess, or the fae of your land, or the spirits of your land. It is a sacred thing. So if you plant in a sacred manner, that also adds to these things. And Freya, I know you understand that. So with that in mind, keep that. It'll give you that little extra, like, oh, really? Because a lot of people would not think about how sacred gardening is, but it really is. It comes from my heart. It seems to be a part of everything that I do. So to me, that's a big deal. And it goes to the fact that, like you see on my hair, when I'm brushing my hair out, I have to use my fingers because my hair is too thick fully brush out. But the hair that comes out, I actually put around my garden because the deer don't like human smell. So I'll put that around. But what happens with that? That hair breaks down and goes back into the earth. Even little things like that, I bet you never thought about doing. So you'll be surprised what you have at your disposal. And again, if you have a small place like I do, and I digressed, so forgive me a second. I put the eggshells in a separate container. I wash the eggshells. There is a thought that you should bake them because of salmonella. I don't do that. I've never had that problem, and I never heard about that in all the many, many, many years. Gotcha. I'm soaking it all up. Awesome. But I do wash them. I don't quite understand the salmonella thing only because soil is loaded with bacteria, good and bad. The idea is that we're trying to nurture the good versus the bad. So I need to do more research. I'm actually taking a class, college course actually in herbalism, and I will know more down the line because I believe me, I'm no expert. I've taken a lot of classes, but I'm no expert. I still learn. In fact, I don't think there's experts in anything as long as you're open to learning something new. So I hope that I can teach, but I'm not the end all. There's always something that you can learn. Plus, my garden may be very different than yours, Freya, or yours, Lyra, or yours, Craig. So, and especially yours, Lori. I'm more food orientated, though. I do have roses. They're dedicated to, believe it or not, my children and my gods and goddesses and the fae, as well as like some foxglove and morning glories and all that other stuff I have dedicated to them. Most of what I have is for food production, and I am an avid canner. I dehydrate food. And if the gods see it through, maybe I can get a freeze dryer. Can't afford one of those right now, but there is a freeze dryer that I'm looking for called Harvest Right, and right now I can't afford the $2,400 for that. I wish I could. If I did, I would have amped up the amount of preservation by 10 because it's such a food saver. When I dehydrate something like tomato skins, I save them and it becomes paste when I make my tomato sauces and gravies. Plus, it's a flavoring agent for many other things. So I have uses for everything. Maybe one day I can have that freeze dryer, but we'll see what happens. We will get into all of that. So there's a lot of good stuff that you can be doing now. Do it with intention. Start working on a small compost pile. As I mentioned, and again, I digressed. I put the eggshells separately, and when they're all dry, I take my immersion blender and I grind them into a powder. So once I got maybe like that much, I'm on keto, so I eat a lot of eggs. When I got about that much, I put it into my soil mix. So it's an experiment. I don't want to use bone meal this year. I'm going to try and see if the eggshells, because I've already used it. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm recycling. If the eggshells will give me the same type of results, because bone meal is calcium, so is eggshells. So I ground them down into a fine powder. In fact, it was so fine, it was like talc. And I added that into my soil mix. My soil mix this year is, I'm not using peat this year. So I'm trying out Coco Coir, or Coir, C-O-I-R. So, which is made from the husks of the coconut. So I'm using that, vermiculite, some perlite. I added the calcium from the eggshells. I powdered that up, and worm castings. That is what I'm using as an all-purpose seed starting mix. And to that, I will add the compost that I made. And I also ordered from Yellow Bag, the big yellow, I forget how much is even in that. I have compost coming. So I'm going to be mixing that in as well. Alrighty. Now, if you still don't have enough space for a little compost pile, whether it's in a container, you don't have the counter, believe it or not, you can actually throw your scraps on your garden if you feel that you won't have animal or insect pressure where you live. So a lot more, or urban gardens may be a little bit safer. And what I would still do to that is chop it real small, put it on, and maybe work it in the soil a little bit. I'm a big fan of no-till, but it's up to you, alrighty? You could throw scraps this time of the year. If you make it real small, then it'll also decompose gently into your soil. So there's a couple of things that you can do to kind of recycle your food. I also give my scraps to the guinea pigs. So like I just made a vegetable medley, onions, garlic, eggplant, and a couple of other things. Now, the only thing the babies can eat from that is eggplant. So I gave them the end without the leaf. The leaf has nicotine in it. We don't want to do that. But I gave them some of the eggplant. They love it, you know. Or if I'm making a salad, the ends of lettuce, the ends of celery and carrots. And by the way, the ends of celery become full plants again if you plant them. And I've had really good success with that. Just to let you know, you can just cut off the end, leave about that much, put it in water. Once you start to see roots, the leaves will already start coming up. Once you see roots, put it in a pot of soil and watch what happens. Because I had a plant like up to my knees 2 years ago, so I'm doing it again. So there is a lot that you can be doing. So you can be working on your compost pile, saving your scraps, whether you can put it into compost or not, put it on your the soil itself. You can do that. You can gently nutrify your soil, whether it's an in-ground garden or your pots. You can clean up the debris, alrighty? And again, if you want to leave it, you can leave it. There's nothing wrong with that. I like to add more soil to my container garden, so I have to take out maybe at least a third to a half of the container, and then I revitalize that soil, and then I put it back in. So that's my container gardens. Container gardens go through a lot more nutrients and much quicker than an in-ground garden, which makes more sense. You could kind of understand, because when you're in a container garden, it's you're limited to the size of that container. So the plant will uptake those nutrients at a much greater and faster rate. So I have to do that, so I'm cleaning it out anyway. Your in-ground garden, that's going to be up to you. I still like to clean things up. Alrighty, I don't want aphids. They still come. I had a problem with my peppers last year, but I was able to take care of that. We'll talk about insect pressure in another video. But there's a lot of good stuff that you can do. So Lori writes that roses love chopped banana peels. That's awesome. And you know, Lori, I heard that. I did hear that. There's a lot of things going on around, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or something about banana peels. You can also macerate them in a blender and use that. But looking at the health of your garden, it sounds like it's going to be a very good thing to do. So that is awesome. Do you just sprinkle it around your roses, or do you dig it into the soil? I'm just curious, because you have more of an urban garden. So I don't know. I might be wrong, Lori, but I'm not sure if you have the animal pressure that I have over here on the retreat center that I'm at. So I have to even be careful about certain things like that. For instance, there's got to be, oh my gosh, there's families of groundhogs here. There are at least 3 different distinct deer families of deer over here. There's a lot of animals here. There are coyotes here. I've seen fox here. I've seen bear here. So it sounds like I'm in the middle of nowhere, but that's actually not true. I'm just on the outskirts of Cornwall on Hudson. So this just happens to be a lot of land here. So awesome, Lori. So these are some ideas that I can give you as a gardener, as a homesteader. I call myself a homesteader. I too dress in compost and mix in. That is a great idea. I'm going to give that a try. All right, Lori, I'm going to give that a try. Funny thing is I don't eat bananas because I'm on keto, so I can't have all that sugar. But I'm going to figure out something. Do you let the banana peels dry before you use them, or do you just use them raw and just lay it on as you use them? Just curious on that one. So without dragging this on too much longer, unless you guys have any questions, and I'll do my very best to answer this, I'm figuring on doing more raw. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to see if anybody in my family around here eats bananas, and then I can try chopping up some pieces and see what we've got going on. So even if you can today, depending on where you're at, I'm in zone, like I said, zone 6A, maybe 6B. That's give or take. Tools that will help you if you have a thermometer in your greenhouse, a thermometer on your deck or in your garden, so you have a good idea as to what's going on, because we all have okay, let me get back to that. So Freya, you write, what can we do to grow seeds without the dirt getting moldy? Okay, so it does, and I know what you mean, but what that means is you don't have enough air circulation around your soil. And I learned that one the hard way. And even still, when even if I have a fan once in a while, and that could be the container that I'm growing in and such, but it usually means you don't have enough air circulation, or you have, if you're starting seedlings, you have the cap on or the humidity dome on too long. Basically, what is being said, this is from my research in my classes, is once they germinate, they want to reach for the sun. And yes, okay, I'm going to get to that, Lori. So you take off the humidity dome once they emerge, and then leave it alone, okay? A little bit, a small fan would be to your advantage. So what I do is I don't necessarily have the fan here in the house because it's cool in here. I have a cement floor, believe it or not, so it gets very cold. So what I do is in the greenhouse, my heater is also a fan, and so I have it blowing on the plants themselves, and it helps to strengthen the stems of the plant. So if they get wind on them, it actually creates some tension and it causes them to get stronger. But it also helps to dry out the very top of the soil from getting mold. Another thing that Lori just wrote is a light spray of peroxide is antifungal. Yes, now Lori, what I understood was I think it's 1 to 5, meaning 1 part, I think it's 1 to 5, or maybe even 1 to 6. 1 part peroxide to 5 parts water, and then you spray it on, or do you use it full strength? Because peroxide breaks down, it's just hydrogen and oxygen. So it's not harmful to your plants as long as it's not too strong. So peroxide's one thing, water, air on your plants would really, really help. And I found out something new, and I'm also trying this, is if when you plant your seedlings, put vermiculite on the top of it, and let the seedling come in. So you have a layer of vermiculite on the very top of your plant. The seedling will grow. And I understand that the vermiculite not only helps with fungus growth, but it also helps with any bugs, like if you have fungus gnats. I didn't go with peat moss this year because I understand that peat moss, since it's now it's not, they're considering, oh boy, I can't talk today. There's a lot of people talking about the environmental issues around peat moss. So look into that. And the other aspect is peat moss can bring in fungus gnats into your home. So understanding, my understanding is that the vermiculite on top of the soil before the seeds even sprout will help with fungus gnats and will help with fungus. So that's a new thing that I learned this year. So Freya, I hope that answers your question. But if you're growing the seeds in your home, I tend to think that you probably just need more air. So if a window is opened a little bit, or you have a little fan in your seed starting area, that may help with the mold problem. So I've seen it. I've dealt with it. I've had to scruff up the soil, take out things. And this is, in my earlier days. But now I'm beginning to have a better understanding. Yeah, I gotcha. So try the either the peroxide or a fan on that area. I'd love to hear your progress with that. And if you see, or if you think it's working or it's not working. I've even heard sand. So I'm not quite sure. I haven't done that, but I've heard about sand for helping carrots grow. Alrighty, anything with a long taproot. So there's a lot of experimentation. My biggest experiments are trying the eggshells, which I already did. I don't have it. I brought it outside. I already have a big mix of that soil that I've been planting my seeds in. And so far, so good. So I've been kind of happy with it. But, the season's only just started for me. I've already harvested bunches of lettuce already. Lettuce and Swiss chard. So I've been pretty lucky with those. They're all in the greenhouse right now. And if you find that maybe even a greenhouse is a bit much because of the time that it takes, try grow lights, alrighty, if you can. I'm preferring the greenhouse because it's allowing me to grow in and then move the stuff outside, and then I could start new stuff in here. My greenhouse is very small. So by the time I move a second wave of plants there, what's in the greenhouse will now go into the containers and in the in-ground garden. So it's kind of cyclical, and I try to keep up on it, and it is work. I will never say that gardening is easy, but it's really rewarding. I really believe that it helped with my husband's lead poisoning. He had a very mild case, but his pain is gone. And in my research, the ideas of eating non-processed food as much as possible, it was one of the remedies for it. Other things were medications and chelation therapies, but I didn't want to go that far yet. I wanted to see, so after about a couple of months of canning my own foods, dehydrating my own foods, and cooking a lot of what's in my pantry. Now, I'm not a vegetarian, okay? So I also render my own fats. So I use those, meaning lard and tallow. So I also do that. If I cook bacon, I save that as well, but I kind of just use that for just cooking more bacon or something like that. A lot of bacon is very highly processed, alrighty. So there are a couple of things here. I will try and help out both in the vegetarian, vegan end, as well as the omnivore end, and try to help out anybody with their gardens on both ends. I consider myself more of a homesteader, which is maybe a step up from gardening because I'm trying to learn a lot of different skills. Here, it's my dream to own a little farm, nothing big. I want to grow my own fruit, and I want to do a lot of those things. So it is my dream, that it is my intent, and I ask the gods that that's what I'm going to do. And hello, Ray. It's nice to have my brother here. So that is a bit of what I wanted to talk about in regards to the garden and what you can do. It's a wonderful way of being. It really helps out with your health and with what is going on out there. And I'm not going to sound like a naysayer or whatever. I'm not a prepper. I consider myself a homesteader. There's a big difference. But food prices are going way, 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 way up there, and things are getting way too expensive. There's a saying in the gardening or homesteading community that by the time you buy food in the supermarket, it's already dead. The essence of that plant is already dead. What that means is by the time you get your tomato, whether it's from, it doesn't matter where it is. By the time you get that beautiful red tomato, it was probably cut 3 weeks ago, which means the essence, there are chemical changes that happen in that food. There are the energetics of that plant has changed dramatically, and how they process, they gas a lot of tomatoes and apples, and they use insecticides on a lot of these things. My thought is, I'm not trying to sound like, oh my God, you got to buy an underground bunker right now. That's not the case. The idea is be a smart consumer, alrighty? I would rather buy a package of seeds, right? A package of these seeds that cost me $3, and I probably get 30 plants out of this, maybe more. And each plant will give me pounds of food that is clean based on the scraps you threw into your organic garden, manures and grasses and all that other stuff. In the long run, I'm not saying that it's going to be cheaper. It depends on how you work it. Some people will say that it is. Some people will say that it's not. But your food, the quality, I guarantee you that if you really get into this, you will stop going to the supermarket as much. Or I find that I don't go to a lot of restaurants now because the food doesn't taste nearly as good as the food I'm growing at home. So salads don't even taste the same. You ever go and eat a salad in a supermarket, not a supermarket, or in a restaurant, and it's orange, or it's red, and when you cut into it, it tastes like cardboard. Alrighty, same thing with cucumbers and all that other stuff. The quality of the food that you grow at home is unbelievable compared to what you are buying. If you cannot grow, go to your farmers markets. At least you have a better control as to what is in that food that you are eating. Insecticides and all the other things that are in there. Keep that in mind. If all you want is better quality food growing at home, even if you get like an arrow garden type of thing, growing at home is far better. And that's what I'm trying to encourage, so that you can take care of your health. You could take care of your family's health. You could take care of your animals' health, okay? So keep that in mind. We can talk about, I can probably go on this for hours, but I'm going to end it here because I know it's getting to be dinner time. But I will be coming up with these pop-up videos from time to time, as well as the other moderators, which is Chandra, my daughter Chandra, and Miguel. So we'll have a couple of these types of videos going on. And please send me your questions. In fact, I'm going to welcome that because of the class that I'm taking. So it'll also help me to do the research. If I don't know something, I will refer to the books that I had to buy, my textbooks and stuff like that, and I will do my very best to answer you on this. I'm also going to be offering gardening consultations as well as herbal consultations on top of this. And I'm just going to do like short little snippets. So if you're interested, it'd be like a 15-20 minute consultation for about $20. Alrighty. This also, believe it or not, in being selfish here, is helping me out with my studies. So you could see why I'm doing it. It's just the way my brain works. I'm ADHD and a bit obsessive compulsive. So I need to know that. Love you too, sweetie. That's my brother there. So I'm proud to say that he's there. But love you, sweetie. With that in mind, keep those things. And like I said, post those questions. I'd be more than happy to answer them. I'm also interested in where all of you are getting your products, and that means your fertilizers, your amendments. If you're buying plants and your starts, where are you getting them? Where are you getting your seeds, your trellises, all that other sort of good stuff. I'm interested in what you are doing as well, because that teaches me. Alrighty, so I'm gonna get going, everybody. Like I said, it's great to have it's time for dinner. My husband should be home very, very soon. And keep the conversation going in the comments. I will get to them after dinner and see what is there. So I hope to see a lot of scribbling there and a lot of ideas. And what ideas would you want me to touch on in future videos? Alrighty, many blessings, everybody. I'll see you all very soon.